All right, hey Bucky, hey rookies. We're here, Jeff and I. We're going over our week 6 coming up. Jeff, how did your week 5 picks go this week?
Free picks went pretty well, 2-1, and although the one loss was the most painful because not only did Philadelphia win the game, but I lost my bet, so it was a 0 for 2
Oh,
on that one.
those are tough losses.
Yeah,
Well, I
betting
was
on
2
Philly,
and
you want
1.
them to lose.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, I was 2 and 1 on free picks, so that would have meant if you would have went with us, you'd have been 4 and 2 this week overall on free picks. If you took Jeff and my picks, so that's not bad. The lines just didn't show up last week. I was disappointed. It appears that, like I think I said in my video, I was concerned that Belichick may have figured out golf, and I think that's exactly what happened. So anyway, but not bad. 4-2. You're winning, making money at 4-2. If you'd have taken our picks this week or last week in week 5. So my key takeaways for week 5 are it is hard to bet against the Falcons not covering ATS. They're not winning that many games, but they are covering week in and week out, and they did it last week against the Bucs pretty easily. The bet of the year was the Giants over 6 games. I think it was 6.5 at the beginning of the year. We didn't put out any futures bets. We'll do that in the future, rookies for sure. But I think you're going to see that win by November. Now, I don't know what the win total is now. They adjust it, but at the beginning of the season, it was 6, and the Giants are clearly getting there. Hey, the other thing I took away is the Jets are for real. I mean, they put a smack down on the Dolphins, and it wasn't just because of the quarterback situation. They just beat them. And, defense is king. And I'm going to say it now, Jeff. I'd like to take a flyer on Micah Parsons to win the NFL MVP. This week it was at plus 2,500. It's a flyer for sure. Only 2 different defensive players have ever won the MVP in the NFL. Alan Page in 1971, part of the Purple People Eaters, and then Lawrence Taylor, obviously, in 86. And everyone's making comparisons to Parsons, to Lawrence Taylor. So, you may want to do it this year, or if not, you'll do it next year. He's the best player on the field every time on either side of the ball. And if, the Cowboys get Dak back and they make a run, it's hard to not vote. It's hard to vote for a quarterback, that he sacks 4 times in the Super Bowl, if that happens, which it could. So I might do a quarter unit or half unit bet, just as a flyer. Jeff, what were your key takeaways for week 5?
Well, one, as I mentioned, the Philadelphia loss. One is I should take advantage of some more of those half game bets. I was planning on betting Philly at the first half instead of full game, but didn't get back and make that pick, and that would have worked out well for me as opposed to the way I did go. And the other thing was mentioning Miami. Seems like they had a much more difficult time with their 3rd string quarterback than New England did. Not sure if that says more about the team or just Belichick as a coach, but they struggled mightily, and New England came back with their 3rd string, originally 3rd string, and took a game fairly handily themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that kid played at Missouri. Is that right? Somewhere. And he threw for a ton of yards in college. I'm not sure about the quarterback out of in Miami. I think he played at Tech, but I don't know how effective he was in college. Yeah, the quarterback position is the most important position on the field. So you got to get that guy right, and you got to put him in the right system. And I think we talked about it last week. This is where, we're starting to see organizations that win, not just the team with the best players and coaches and schemes. It's the best organizations that keep players on the field. Any other takeaways from week 5, Jeff?
Well, I guess the only other one is maybe the NFC East is for real. You get the Giants coming back and winning. You get the Cowboys showing up well against the Rams. So I wasn't sure for a while. I'm starting to believe in them a little more.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys beat both the last year's Super Bowl team and the contender. We'll see if I guess all the NFC teams will play those teams this year. We'll see if see if the rest of the NFC East can do the same. And maybe we'll have an NFC East championship game in Philadelphia or Dallas, whoever ends up on top.
Yep.
Yep. So this is the fun part of the season, rookies, as we throw into the mix the buys and the teams coming off buys. You can grow your bank or shrink it, as we move into this phase of the season. And you need to factor in these bye weeks, because this is really the only other key factor before like week 10 or 11, and the teams that are completely out of it just kind of fall off, and then you have to factor that into your analysis. So we need to continue to watch injury reports more closely as teams coming in out of the bye week. Since 2003, according to the sites that I reviewed this weekend, teams coming off the bye are 265 and 273 and 15 ATS. Obviously, depending on the bet, when it was made, I always get a little concerned about these historical stats because, the lines change. We've seen lines change this week or this year on a couple of games. If you took them one way, you won. You took the other way, you tied or lost. But that's a 53% win rate. It's a topic or a trend to the upside for sure. And so, will that trend continue this year with the bye weeks? I don't know. We'll have just to see. So the 4 teams, though, that are on bye week this week are the 1-4 Lions, the 1-3-1 Texans, the 1-4 Raiders, and the 3-2 Titans. 3 or 4 of those teams really need a bye week, try to get back on track. And I'm sure the Titans would prefer to keep playing as they've gone 3-0 and gotten back on track after that bad 0-2 start, and then that shellacking by the Bills on that, I think it was on Monday night. The Titans are one of those teams we talked about last week, Jeff, that just get it right as an organization week in and week out. So I'd have some confidence in them coming out of their bye week, maybe getting back healthy. So, as we go forward, rookies, we'll take a closer look here at the bye weeks in our analysis. Jeff, you got anything on the bye weeks that you think we need to discuss?
No, I think organizations and coaches tend to bring pretty good records or consistent bye week records with them where they go, like Andy Reid.
Yeah, that's a great point. That'll be something we ought to take a look at, since they've instituted the bye week, see which coaches come out of that best. We have some, now there'll be some coaches we don't have any data on because they're brand new, but
Yep.
If you got a guy like McDaniel that was an assistant at, under a guy, well, maybe that's a tell on how he's going to handle his bye week coming out of that. That's good. That's a good point. We need to keep that in mind. Okay, we kick off Sunday, week 6 with the 49ers traveling to a hot Atlanta to take on the 2-3 straight up, a 5-0 ATS Falcons. The spread is the 49ers by 5.5, and the over-under is 44 in a hook. The Falcons fought back last week in Tampa, and that game could have gone either way with a questionable call on the roughing the passer. I don't want to go into all that myself. Jeff, you may want to talk about it, but the past 2 weeks, the Falcons have come back in the fourth quarter to cover ATS. That's pretty much clear. They've been fighting all year. This team doesn't have any, give up in them. So it's a tough team to bet against, but the 49ers are coming off a decisive win against the another NFC South team, the Panthers. I know you got a win last week with them, if I remember right. And I know all 3 teams that came out west covered in the East and center part of the country, the 49ers, Chargers, and Raiders. So at the first of the year, I was looking at teams going from the west to east, and it appears that that's not really a factor. Do you like any team here, Jeff, between the 49ers and the Falcons?
So I know Atlanta's run is definitely going to have to come to an end. They're against the spread run, but I actually don't think it's going to happen this week. Their defense can keep it close. And when I'm running my numbers, my analysis says that I should pick San Fran by about 3.5. And so to have a 6-point spread, I think that's a little too favorable for them. So I'd lean towards Atlanta here.
Yeah, I wonder, do you know if the 49ers stayed in the southeast from the Panthers game to Atlanta, or do they go back to San
I
Francisco?
don't
and then
remember
back?
hearing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that, I don't know that I'm going to bet this game, but if I were going to bet it, I would definitely want to know that. Because for sure, I think, if you go out once, that's fine. But if you go out and then you go back and you go back, I don't know. That might take a toll on the. I mean, I know travel leisure is so much easier now, especially for the football teams. But historically, that has played a factor. So if you're going to bet at rookies, I would definitely take a look at that factor to see if San Francisco stayed in the South to practice before that game in Atlanta. All right, we're going to move on and stay in the East for an AFC matchup as the Pats travel to Cleveland to take on the Browns. The Browns are favored by a field goal, and the over-under is 42 and a hook. Look, Belichick is 8-2 against his old team, and last year the Pats beat the Browns 45-7 at home. The Browns are coming off a tough home loss against the Chargers, and the Pats got it done easily with the new quarterback against the Lions. It feels like Belichick figured out golf last week, and I think he's going to figure out the Browns. I think he's got the Browns figured out. I think there's just some teams that coaches have their number. So for my first free pick, and my rationale is because I think the coach has got it figured out, is take the Pats +3 to cover on the road versus the Browns. Do you like this matchup, Jeff? Do you see anything here?
Well, I have started seeing some movement towards New England so far. The line originally was 3, and I'm seeing it go into 2.5. So people are starting to look at the New England side like you. And I tend to agree that Belichick, just like he has with Goff, if you come across somebody a team that's one-dimensional, like I still think Cleveland is with Brissett as the QB, I think he can pretty well hone in on it. So I'm feeling good about New England. The only concern is Mac Jones' health, because if you're already going in with your third string quarterback, just like Miami last week, if you lose one, if your QB goes out and you have nothing behind them, that could really throw a game for you. So that's my only hesitation with that one.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm picking a team that's got starting a third string quarterback. That's a great point, but I really feel like he's got their number. So we'll see. But I guess of all the picks that I've made this year so far, this is the one pick that this is my least confident free pick for sure. So for the rookies out there looking at betting this game, if you're not a New England fan, you may want to stay away from it. We'll see how it turns out. Hey, next up, we have the 3-2 Jets traveling to Lambeau Field to take on the 3-2 Packers. The Pack is favored by 7 and a hook, and the over-under is 46. The Jets are coming off a big win against the Dolphins, as we mentioned, and the Packers lost a close one to the Giants last week. It had another offensive meltdown in the second half. I feel like the Packers are unbettable at this point in the season. Not sure which team on offense is showing up, and for that matter, even on defense. I like the Jets here in the points, and we'll see this getting over. Had not seen the forecast, and the 13-mile-an-hour winds out of the Northwest is going to be in Lambeau Field. I don't know how that's going to affect the two quarterbacks, and it may just mean they run the ball more and they don't get to that number. I don't like betting over-unders with wins above 10. That's just one of the things I tend not to do because too much can go wrong on special teams. So just keep that in mind. Jeff, you see any value here with the Pack and the Jets?
I do see some value here when I'm looking at my numbers, point differential, historical against the spread numbers. My analysis would say Green Bay by about 3.5. So we're getting double the points that I think we should. So yeah, I'm looking at the Jets as being a pretty strong play. Not one of my free picks, but I feel good about the Jets in this one.
Yeah, they look really good offensively last week with that new rookie running back out of Iowa, and is it Iowa or Iowa State? I don't know. I think it might have been Iowa State, but with Zach Wilson back, I mean, the offense looks like they're clicking, and I like what they did in the offseason on defense. And I mean, the Packer. I mean, what are you seeing with the Packers? Did you watch pick up any of the last couple games they played?
I have no idea why they're still being favored by this amount of points. They have not shown anything that leads me to believe that they would be consistent on offense. It's been very hit or miss. The offensive line isn't as good as I thought, and the receivers just, even Rodgers isn't able to make them look good. So I don't understand the point spreads that they're getting.
Yeah, I mean, we could see New York, back-to-back wins against the Pack. In the last week and then this week. I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't put money on that, but man, I wouldn't put it past the Jets to get it done this week either. They're coming in motivated.
Yep.
All right, next up, we have a rematch from week 2 with the Jags traveling to Indianapolis to face off against the Colts. The Colts were blanked in week 2 against the Jags and followed that up but the Jags followed that up with a shellacking of the Chargers at home. And one might have thought that they were off to the races, but the last couple of weeks have shown the Jags' weaknesses. And both teams are chasing the Titans, who are on bye week this week. The Colts are favored by 2 and a hook, coming off extra rest from that Thursday night game against the Broncos, and the over-under is 42. The Colts got it done in Denver with a running platoon effort, as they did not have Jonathan Taylor, and 41 passing attempts by Matt Ryan. That's not why they brought Matt Ryan in to throw 41 times. The Jags could not get in the end zone last week, and they put up 400 yards total offense, but only 6 points. The 2 turnovers hurt bad. I feel like the Jags are a better team here, and that their offense is just struggling to score at times. But I think we got to watch Taylor this week in practice. I think if he goes, the Colts have a chance to even the series. And from the over/under perspective, it's just tough to go over 40 points with the Colts. I mean, if they get running the football, they can run down and kick field goals all day and just keep the other team off the field. Jeff, do you like anyone here?
I like it so much. It's my first free pick. So I did go against this specific trend. Yep. I went against a trend between these two teams early in the season, their first matchup, and I went with Indy based on early season numbers. But when you just look at this matchup, Jacksonville's won the last 5 against the spread, and 3 of the last 5 straight up against Indy. And that's when I thought Indy was a better team, and I thought Jacksonville was the worst team. This year, I think that's slightly changed, and the fact that Taylor still didn't practice yesterday leads me to believe he'll be limited at best in the game. So this is my first free pick. I'm going Jacksonville with points.
Okay, so take 2. Is it 2.5 still, Jeff?
I've got it at 2.
2. Take the Jags and 2 points for Jeff's first free pick of the week. All right, our second interconference game, we have the Vikings traveling to Miami to face off against the Dolphins. The Vikings are favored by a field goal on the road. The over/under is 45 on a hook. The Vikings have been playing good football this season and beat the Bears in a close one that last week. The Dolphins came off a real beatdown by the Jets. They lost their second string quarterback and had to go to their 7th round, 247 pick out of Kansas State prospect. That's always a tough call to make. As of Monday, no starter was named. I'm not sure if they named a starter this week, Jeff. I didn't look. The quarterback position is the most important position on the field. And while I might jump all over the Vikings, they are on the road, and it's difficult to win on the road in the NFL, even if the other team's quarterback's not playing. Although I'm going with the Pats and a 3rd-string quarterback on the road. So, I don't know why I'm not attracted to the Vikings here. Seems like 45 and 46 is too low. But given the turf change for the Minnesota, I could see it affecting the Vikings, scheme and offensive scheme. So may want to stay away from that one as well. Jeff, any thoughts on this game?
My thought here is that I'm going to have to wait until I figure out the quarterback position, and I'll probably even then stay away from it. if Tua plays and stays healthy throughout the game, I think they win the game. So that would certainly make me lean one way. But with Tua, I mean, one sack gets up groggy again and he's out of the game, and then you have nobody again. So I think the Miami quarterback situation is just too risky for me to try and bet it this week. So I'm going to stay away from it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jeff. Sometimes, the best way to make money is to not lose money in betting. And, sometimes the risk reward isn't there. I kind of like Miami at home too, if Tua goes, to be honest. I'll be looking at this one to see where they're at. And then, if Tua doesn't go, I may take a flyer on or a half unit on the Vikings to cover on the road, even though it's tough to win on the road, just because, they got beat pretty handily by the Jets. And I think Cousins is as good a quarterback as Wilson, and the Jets and the Vikings are as good an offense as the Jets are.
Especially in a noon game.
For sure. There's a lot of interconference games. So what's that, Jeff?
Especially in a noon game, Cousins will, play much better at noon than at 3. So
yeah, no, you got that number on him for sure.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
it's amazing that the overwhelming statistics, it's like 90% of the time he loses when it's a non-noon game against the spread.
Yeah. That's all. You almost take that to the bank.
Yep.
That's, you bet. All right, that's what you get from here, rookies. This is the kind of analysis you get. You get these little gems that you can use. We're not just here we're here to help you out throughout, not just this week and this season, but seasons in the future. Hey, a lot of interconference games, and we have our third one coming up with Bengals traveling to New Orleans to face off against the Saints. The Bengals are favored by 1.5. The over/under is 43.5. The Saints got it done last week, winning by some nifty trick plays in the legs and arms of Taysom Hill. That guy's such a good athlete. Andy Dalton was effective and a good game manager, and they pulled that out. The Bengals continue to disappoint, losing a close one to the Ravens. I don't like either team, but I do like the AFC is much stronger this year than the NFC, I think. I would fade the Bengals here to win, and I guess that's not fade. I would favor the Bengals here to win, but I would fade the over. I'd shade to the over if you're going to bet them. Both Burrow and Chase played in this stadium and know it very well. The offensive line continues to struggle, and New Orleans may put some pressure on Burrow and tee off on him, but I think there's got to be some motivation for both those athletes to come back to Louisiana and play well. Jeff, do you like either team here?
Yeah, you've got a lot of motivation. Dalton back against Cincinnati, Burrow back in Louisiana. So a lot of motivation in this one. And it's actually going to be my second free pick. My analysis of point differential, historical against the spreads tells me that Cincinnati should be favored by at least a touchdown, up to 8 points. So to get a 1 point definitely looks out of line to me, even though I know we've got the deep offensive line struggles for Cincinnati. So my second free pick is Cincinnati -1.
I like that pick, Jeff. I really do. I think Burrow and Chase are going to get it done there in the Superdome as well. Well, you heard it. Jeff's second free pick is take the Bengals minus a 1.5 or a point, whatever the line ends up, for his second free pick. All right, next up, we have another interconference game with Giants hosting the 4-1 Giants hosting the 3-2 Ravens. The Giants are home dogs at -5.5, and the over-under is 45. Both teams are coming off wins last week, and the Giants are returning from London. So I don't know if that's going to have an effect on their sleep patterns. Both teams are running the football very well. The Ravens got Dobbins back, and man, that makes all the difference in their rushing attack. And it makes Lamar Jackson look he doesn't have to be the primary guy to run the football. I continue to like the Ravens in the first half. Oh, they did not get it done last week. If you're going to bet the Ravens, I would fade to the over, despite the rushing attack, as these teams tend to get big running plays, not the Titans, example of ground and pound game that tends to produce low scoring games. Jeff, any games you like here? Do you like this game?
So the Giants have done better against the spread than Baltimore this year and the last part of last year. But basically, when I look at my numbers for my expected points, I'm right on 45. For point differential, I'm about 3.5 to 4. So I think Vegas is pretty dead on in this one. So I'm not going to bet it. They've got it right where I see it playing out.
Okay, you heard from Jeff. His analysis shows that the Vegas got this one right, and they probably tend to get those New York games pretty close because of a lot of New York money can come in and sway those lines either way. So they try to probably don't mess around too much with those because there's only a couple states a couple teams that can really change the lines. One of them is New York for sure. The other one is Texas and money on the Cowboys. That's the other one that can really change the line. All right. Next up we have lost my place. Our last noon game, we have our fourth interconference game with the 3-2 Bucks traveling to visit the 1-4 Steelers. The Bucks are favored by 8.5 on the road, and the over/under is 43 and a hook. The Steelers looked bad last week, Jeff, against the superior Bills, and the Bucks got it done in another sloppy win. I would fade the under here if I were to bet, but I'm not touching this game. I can't see a Mike Tomlin team going 1-5, but I'm just not sure how they go 2-4. But they could, they could go in. The Bucks could come in, and the Steelers could bring out the terrible towels and put a whooping on them. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen, but they could. This is one of those great organizations, and while I tend to bet on great organizations, instead, I'm not going to bet against them when I see them failing like this, because I do think that you're going to see, a few dying wins of an organization that's prideful and doesn't want to go down without a fight, although they didn't have no fight last week. So, if this were any other game, I'd take the Bucks on a 3-unit bet against them. But I'm not going to do it because I think they could put it together. Do you see any value here, Jeff, with this game?
I'm staying away from this game as well. If I were looking at prior year history, I would say Tampa Bay should only be given a 5.5 point spread. So I would think Pittsburgh with the 9-point differential. But the way they've looked so far this year, especially the last couple of weeks, I just cannot go with Pittsburgh to cover. But like you said, Tomlin is a great coach. At some point, he's going to pull off some magic to turn him around for at least a week or two. So I'm just staying away from this one because I don't understand Pittsburgh well enough yet.
Yeah, that's a good call, Jeff. All right, our first 3:00 game, we have the 1-4 Panthers traveling to LA to face off against the defending Super Bowl but 2-3 Rams. The Rams are favored by 10.5, and the over/under is 40 and a hook. The Panthers lost last week at home to the 49ers, and the Rams were taken to the woodshed by our Cowboys. The Rams are a 4-1 ATS, covering only on the road against Arizona. Their offense is struggling, to say the least, to establish the run, and their wideouts are finding it difficult to get open. I feel like they're playing a bunch of point guards at wide receiver, and it's not to say you can't have a few point guards, but I'm not sure that you can run the entire offense through those smaller kind of scat, quick and scat wide receivers. I think you got to have a bigger guy at least to come in and kind of get open. But that's just kind of my assessment of their wide receiver core. The Panthers are 0-2 to teams in the NFC West, and it feels like they'll be 0-3 after this week. But man, 10.5 seems way too many to me. And be honest with you, 40 and a hook seems pretty low as well. Baker remains questionable, and the coach was fired. But, last year we saw with the Raiders firing their coach, they got better. And so, these athletes have a lot of pride. I don't know that we're going to see a 40.5 game. And I don't think that the Panthers are going to get beat by 10.5 after losing their coach. Jeff, what do you think this week?
Well, it is hard to understand how a team will respond to their coach getting fired. It depends on how close they were, whether he'd lost the locker room. So that worries me a little bit. I do think the 10-point spread is probably a little high. I would have thought it would be probably more around 4 or 5. So that tempts me to lean towards Carolina. But with the change coming this week, not knowing how they're going to respond, I'm going to stay away from this game. If I did go any direction, I would probably go over on this one, just because historically my numbers came out to about a 47-point expectation, and knowing that they're not playing well, they're both lower this year, but that's a touchdown lower. So I think I'd probably just fade a little bit to the over.
All right. Well, I think we got consensus on this game. I'm staying away from the points, but I would fade the over as well if I were going to bet it. All right. Next up, we have the 2-3 Cardinals traveling to Seattle to take on the 2-3 Seahawks for an important division game. The Cards are favored by 2.5 on the road, and the over/under is 50 and a hook. The Seahawks continue a strong ATS season despite their 2-3 start. So to the Falcons, but they did not cover last week, did it? The Taysom Hill show. And I won that, so I'm happy about them not covering last week. The Cards came off a tough loss at home to the Eagles. They played well. They did cover the spread, but they played well. They could have got the win there. I like the Cards here, and I would fade the under, as this division game has a lot at stake for the remainder of the season, and I see both coaches coming in with some defense. Jeff, do you like either team here?
Well, I do have a slight leaning, although the weird thing with Arizona is that they score a touchdown more a game when they play away from home than at home, except when they're playing on field turf. Then they're right at their 20-point per game average. So even though this is an away game, the turf is going to make me kind of take that extra touchdown away. So I'm really looking at this being a little lower scoring than what I would have expected. I'm only thinking about a 45-point expectation. So I'm kind of thinking the under might be my play here. But if I were to go either direction on the game, it would be with Arizona.
Yeah, that's a good analysis on the turf. Yeah, I think they play on what, Bermuda grass, if I'm not mistaken, in
I
Arizona.
think that's theirs. Yep.
And it's just tough to go into Seattle. And I don't know what the weather's going to be like. I didn't check the weather, but it just doesn't feel like a lot of games in October were over in Seattle. It's just maybe so, but this one feels under to me. I just feel like I got a hunch that the defenses are going to play better on this one, but I don't know that I'm going to bet a full unit on this game. All right, next up, we got the AFC game of the week with 2 4-1 teams facing off in Kansas City. The Bills are coming to town and favored by field goal. The over/under is 54. This is a rematch of last year's track meet in the playoffs. This is one of that game was one of the wackiest innings to the game I've ever seen in my entire life, probably in the history of the NFL. Felt like a high school championship game, not a NFL playoff game. The money's landing on the Chiefs here with about 80% last time I saw with the points, and that seems right given the home field advantage, although the Bills are looking really strong this year. I like the over/under in the first half. So for my second free pick, I'd take 27 points, take over 27 points first half, Chiefs versus Bills. Jeff, do you like any of these teams?
Well, first of all, that did remind me of a high school playoff game last year in the playoffs, and it reminded me of the Matthew Stafford Highland Park Stephenville playoff game that we watched.
I think we watched that together, didn't we, Jeff?
Yeah, yes, we did. Yes,
Yeah.
And we just knew whoever had the ball last was going to win the game, and that happened to be Stafford.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yep. So this one is another one that I think Vegas did an awesome job on. My point differential would be 3.8 points, and my over/under would be 53.6. So the 54 and the 3-point spread is right on. I actually would probably, based on how they're all playing, I'd probably go ahead and lean towards Buffalo, but it's so close to my expectations. I'm gonna just ignore this game and just enjoy it and watch it.
Yep. Well, let's hope for a lot of scoring in the first half because I'm going over 27. So rookies, if you can get that at 26, sometimes the first half, you'll get 26 and a half, or maybe even down to 25 and a half. Take a look. If it pops above 28 to 28.5, I would say the bet's off. But if you can get it at 28 or below, I think the bet is to take, for my second free pick, take over 27 points first half, Jets or Chiefs and the Bills. All right, so the next game is the NFL game of the week. We have the Cowboys traveling to Philly for an NFC showdown and an NFC East showdown. The Eagles are favored by 6 and the under is 42. Jeff, I don't bet the Cowboys because I'm too vested. Who do you like in this matchup?
Well, I'm happy that the Cowboys have won me 2 bets in a row the last 2 weeks, but I think our luck runs out on this one. My analysis leans towards Vegas, Philly by at least 6. So in this one, while I'm not sure if I'm going to bet a full unit, I would lean towards Philly leaving the points.
Okay. But this isn't one of your free picks.
No, not a free pick, and probably only a half unit.
Okay. Yeah, I just can't bet against the boys. And I'm hoping for a huge win. And I'm hoping for Dak to get back. I don't know. Is he spinning the ball? I know the coach, the owner said if he was spinning the ball, he could play. If he's not, then they're going to go with Rush.
He's definitely out this week. He has been throwing a little bit, so Detroit is probable for him to be back, but this week's a no.
Okay, well, that's going to put a lot more pressure on that defense, and I'm hoping Micah Parsons can shut down Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles offense, get some turnovers, and put the Cowboys in the right position. And Vegas and Jeff Henry are wrong, but rookies, do not take my advice on the Cowboys because I am too vested. You can't bet what you really want to see happen, and that's what I want to see happen. So that's a bad bet. All right, finally, we have the 3-2 Chargers hosting the 2-3 Broncos. The over/under is 45 and a half. The Chargers are favored by 5.5. Looks like Wilson's a go this week, despite the injury to his pec muscle. The Broncos lost another snoozer to the Colts last week, and so they are coming in with additional rest, which I assume Vegas baked into the 5.5 spread. I don't see this as low scoring as the offense has produced. The defense has kept, the Broncos defense has kept teams to 16 points per game. The Chicago or the Chargers got it done last week and rushed for 238 yards and 465 total offense. And they're averaging 25 points a game, which makes me wonder why the over/under is at 45.5. So for my third free pick, take the under 23 in the first half, Chargers versus Broncos. I just feel like this is going to be a defensive struggle between division rivalries that aren't really all that great offensively. And we're going to see the defenses assert themselves, and we're not going to get to that 23 number in the first half. Jeff, who do you like Monday night?
Well, I'm certainly hoping the defenses do what you're talking about, because that will add more fuel to that fire of dissension in Denver. If you saw the receivers slamming their helmet and getting frustrated with Wilson, I think if they start off slow again this week, that's just going to boil over. The Chargers are only averaging 25, but the last couple of weeks they've been over 30. I think it's Herbert getting healthy, Keenan Allen coming back will help them on the offensive side. So I see, and no surprise since I've only picked 2 free picks so far, this is my third free pick. I see the Chargers minus the 5.5, taking Denver, because I do think they finally, hopefully in the second half, score some points against that defense.
I think that's a good pick, Jeff. I was actually torn between going for taking the Chargers with the 5.5 or going on the under. I went under. You're right. I mean, the Chargers offense looks, but that Denver defense is pretty solid.
For real, one of the top 3 probably in the league.
Top 3 for sure. I just don't see how the Broncos score on the Chargers. I mean, the Broncos have put up, 17 points or 16 points on the Seahawks. I mean, they haven't scored. I mean, they scored, they put up some decent points on the Raiders, but everyone has, right? I mean, everyone's been putting points up on the Raiders. So I don't know that that's a feat. So I think the Chargers defense is a lot better defenses than the Broncos have faced. So you heard it. We're waiting until Monday night, rookies, for our third free pick. Jeff's got the Chargers minus 5.5, and I'm under on the first half, 23 points. So my last thoughts for week 6 are, I might wait until the public money comes in on the New York teams. I think I kind of hinted at it a little bit. New York money can change games and change spreads. So if you're thinking you're going to go one way or another, you may want to wait and bet late Saturday or Sunday morning, because you might see some sharp money come in. So you may get some lines that move, to advance. So if you, for example, really thought the Packers were going to take care of business, you may want to wait and get that line. That line may be better after the sharp money comes in. And I feel like the AFC is a stronger conference despite the 10-6 record so far straight up between the two through week 5. I still think that they are stronger. If you looked at the games between the interconference games, I think you saw some weaker AFC teams playing NFC teams, and I think that starts to change this week. So I might go with an AFC 5-team parlay, against the spread just for kicks, maybe a 1/10 of a unit, $10, $20, whatever your unit bets are, something like that, and take the AFC teams in a parlay against the spread just for fun this week. See if that works out. Jeff, any last thoughts on week 6 before we tune out?
Just some last thoughts on injuries. This is probably one to wait right up till Saturday for a couple of games. You want to see what Tua's injury situation is in Miami, Taylor's situation in Indy. So on those games in particular, I'll wait until as late as I can to get the latest injury updates before I place a bet. So yeah, Saturday, early Sunday before I place those. That's about it.
All right, rookies. Hey, have a good week. Good luck. And we'll see you next week.